Leonard Nimoy, famous, of course, to TV watchers and moviegoers as Mr. Spock, dead over the weekend at the age of 83. One who knew him very well and was often misidentified as his son, Rich Michelson, owner of
Hi, how are you?
our Michelson's Gallery and a poet in his own right, much like Leonard Nimoy. Richard, how you doing?
It's been a rough few days, but, we're getting through it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I knew it was coming. We were on the phone and emailing pretty regularly for the couple of days right before. None of us expected it to be that quick. Once he decided that it was time to go, he went quickly. But he did it on his own terms, in his own bed, surrounded by his immediate family. He had a chance to say goodbye to everyone. That's the way we all want to go if we have our choice. So
you're out in Los Angeles right now, and you just have come from the funeral itself. God, you go way back with Leonard Nimoy. I know that you've done so many shows at the R. Michelson Gallery, but how did you guys first hook up?
I've been fortunate to have a long relationship with him. He is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful man to know. Generous, kind, does not put on airs. Takes Amtrak. I pick him up at the station. When I visit him in L.A., he'll pick us up at the airport. He's just a regular guy. We met both through our love of art and writing. I was fortunate that he was actually hired to do the recording of a children's book I wrote called Too Young for Yiddish. What it generally comes down to is a friendship. We got along. We enjoyed laughing together, eating together, hanging out together.
Now, he's a poet, as are you. Did you guys share your poetry with each other?
We write very, very differently. He was very aware that he was not a trained poet. I would send him poems that I liked. He would send me poems that he liked. I would recommend books, and he would devour them. One of the subjects in his Secret Selves project, which he shot at the gallery, was my good friend, the poet Martina Spada. Martine joined us occasionally to talk about poetry, and he was a man of many, many interests.
You, of course, look an awful lot alike, and a lot of people, when they saw you together, thought that you were father and son. And then I heard you say once that he almost became a father figure to you, right?
What often started out as a joke, when we were together, most people assumed we were father and son. It worked in my favor when I couldn't get a restaurant reservation sometimes. We came to call each other by those names over time, and certainly that added to our friendship.
When you were growing up, did people call you Mr. Spock when you were a kid?
I think when I was a kid once, I was Spock on Halloween. I certainly loved the show. Never imagined that eventually I'd be representing Leonard, and I think the two of us both got a kick out of people's perception of that. Does have a son, Adam, a wonderful fella, and a friend of mine as well.
He is quoted as saying that if he could have been someone else, it would have been Spock.
He loved the character. First autobiography was called I Am Not Spock. But for the people who actually read the autobiography, he was not putting down the character. He was just making a kind of intellectual comment about the fact that when parents would introduce their kids to him when he was not in character, they would say, "This is Spock." He was doing a riff on that. But he loved the character. He brought himself to it in many ways. He realized that it gave him freedom to pursue whatever he wanted to do.
Star Trek, I of course remember the show like it was yesterday. It aired right in the middle of the tumultuous 60s, and a lot of the themes of the 60s were reflected in that show itself. He has said that Spock was a character whose time had come.
Yes, Leonard is very involved in the political issues of the day, as he always has been. He's an activist, at least from my perspective, and probably from most of Northampton's perspective. They would find that he's on the right side of all the issues. And Leonard was deep down an optimist. He was not blind to what's going on in the world today, and many things troubled him. He always felt that the future would bring better and that people were basically good at heart.
We're talking to Rich Michelson, the owner of R. Micelson's Gallery in Northampton, a longtime friend of Leonard Nimoy, who just died over the weekend. In fact, we're talking to Richard right now from Los Angeles, right after Leonard Nimoy's funeral. Rich, I've told listeners this too, that I generally only watch old westerns on TV, encore westerns, things like that. And I have seen Leonard Nimoy on Gunsmoke and Rawhide and a dozen other shows, often playing Native Americans. He always had this quiet nobility. He had a long, long television career long before Spock.
Was around for 15 years, working steadily before Star Trek. When that part came to him, he was at the top of his game. Well-established actor. He was not an overnight sensation. He was a hard-working actor.
His utterance of the word fascinating. That was very early on in the series. And
I came to really identify, and because you're my local station, I will give you a little scoop here. One of the last thing that he and I were working on was a picture book that I wrote called Fascinating, The Life of Leonard Nimoy. We didn't manage to finish it before he passed on. It will be published next year by Knopf, and it's mostly a story about his early life, his boyhood, growing up in Boston, his Jewish roots, and the story takes him from a little boy of 8 till he gets the role of Star Trek. We had great fun working on that. Glad that Leonard did get to see the final manuscript.
Well, that's going to be a hell of a book tour, isn't it?
The only time he let me down was he promised me he'd do the 100-city book tour with me. He'll be there in spirit, however.
Richard, you said that his best qualities came forth in some of the photo shoots that he did at the gallery, The Secret Selves especially.
You know, he directed some of the best-earning movies, Three Men and a Baby, The Good Wife. You know, he was a wonderful director. He knew how to get the best out of his actors. Very apparent in Secret Selves. That's a project he shot at the gallery with mostly Northampton people. And the book, which we have at the gallery, come in the gallery and watch the DVD that comes with the book. We do have that playing. We're showing behind the scenes, him interviewing models, and you can see how quickly he was able to put people at ease, how he got just the right photograph. Folks would come in a little nervous about meeting him, about talking to him, especially because they were supposedly, in this case, showing a side of themselves that they've never shown before. And within a minute, they felt they were having a one-on-one conversation in a little room with a friend who was very comfortable to be with. And I think that was what everybody said as they came out of their sessions. They couldn't believe how comfortable it was and how he listened to them and drew them out.
What do you take away from your longtime friendship with Leonard Nimoy?
What I try to take away, and I'm not very good at, is optimistic and loving personality, his interest in so many things. He embraced life to its fullest. He was curious about everything. He wanted to know about everything. He continued right to the end to try to engage with life. He was a man that the sunshine followed him throughout his life. He lived a good life. He prospered. I think if any of us can take a little bit of his mindset, we're all hoping for is that positive attitude, to stay engaged with life and to be loving to people we know and to try to make a positive difference.
When was the last time you saw him?
We had lunch at his place in New York in September. You know, we spoke regularly. We emailed daily, and we had a lovely conversation, I don't know, about a week or so ago.
Nice. What's funny about Star Trek, it sort of gave the lie to the Nielsen ratings because that show only lasted 3 years. And then when it was canceled, it was discovered that everybody in the world watched it.
Yeah, it captured people on a deep level. The rest is history.
Rich Michelson, I know you got a heavy heart the past couple of days, but all I can say is live long and prosper.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Take care.